But yeah, pink theme. I want to start straight away with what you described yesterday. Do you want to just tell the audience what it was? Because I think it would just be like the theme
starting
of this
point.
podcast. Yeah.
Am I allowed to use words like fuck?
Use it.
Are we on?
We are. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So my theme was strong as fuck Indian Barbie, and it's because I love pink. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes, love pink, and I love lifting really heavy, and obviously gotten really stronger over the last few months.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I want to dive deep, obviously, into the journey as a whole. From training all the way to nutrition, the photo shoot. The photo shoot just happened. It's fresh in the memory. Talk us through that experience. Is that everything you wanted? You envisioned? Some of the costumes, or I say costumes, the leggings and the clothes you wore.
Costumes.
Did you feel like, you know what? Oh wow! Like I did it. And how does it feel like 24 hours later?
It felt amazing. So, white is really, I think white is very difficult to pull off because you're self-conscious in it. It also shows every imperfection that you have. So my whole goal, I love white, so I really wanted to wear white. And seeing that in the pictures and how strong and muscular I look was fantastic. Yeah. It's like sometimes I look at the pictures and quite honestly, I don't believe, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's me. Like, it's crazy because I've always worked out, I always get a lot of compliments on clothes and stuff because I love wearing colors and I'm tanned. So, they stand out. But this, I actually felt like, man, I look good. I'm like rocking this outfit. So yeah, it was a great experience. Everyone was like such a big cheerleader, which was so fun. To feel, and everyone's very encouraging, like, yes, you can do that. And I loved how you came and, corrected my poses sometimes, and Sita was also amazing. So it was, overall better than I expected. And quite honestly, I kept going back and forth. I was not one of those people who I'm gonna do the photo shoot. That was not my goal. My goal was I want to lose weight and I want to have a sustainable lifestyle. And then the photo shoot kind of, I had to push myself a little bit because I knew it was going to take a lot of commitment, and it did. I was very strict the last couple of months, but if I hadn't done it, I would have had a lot of FOMO. So I'm so glad I did it. Could not be happier with the results. Yeah.
Well, you looked amazing. The outfits you rocked them for sure.
Thank you.
And I love how you described the fact that, white, and you're so true. I'm not a big fan of white personally, but white, you're right. It just makes your, as you said, imperfections stand out more. And you went in with your first outfit was a light outfit, and you did handstands, and I want to talk about that as well. Obviously that was, I guess, in some way or form a goal of yours through this journey, and you trained really well. So we'll talk about that as well. But I think that you've described, nobody really comes in and talks about their choice of outfits. There's never really a thought process around okay, this looks good, this looks good. You seem to have really thought about it, and you had a very, very prevalent theme that you wanted to portray, and you totally smashed it. The shoot was awesome. It was so much fun working with you. You were so easy to sort of work with and get into the poses, and it was really, really cool to see. But let's talk, of course, about the training now, right? You, just before we started, of course, you were mentioning training and how you've got certain goals. So first, how did you end up with this goal of wanting to do a handstand? And I think you're by far, this entire week, the one person who's come through with a very clear idea on what you wanted to do.
Yeah, very crystal clear.
How did you come across that? Considering you were hesitant about actually doing the shoot, you were very prepared. So let's talk about that a bit more.
Yeah. So let's see. I feel like once I committed to the photo shoot, I told Sita I was 200% in. I was not gonna half-ass it. And I watched your podcast on, I think it was a podcast that Sita sent us about
The FAQ one?
It was FAQ, and just some of the questions people ask you, and just go in with all in so you don't have any regrets. And I watched that podcast and I made up my mind I was going to give it my 200%. I was not going to have any regrets. I actually sent my girlfriends a text message and told them that, hey, I'm doing this and you guys are my support system, so if I come out, I want to be social because we're very social, but I'm not going to be drinking, and I'm going to be really watching what I eat. And I actually have girlfriends who don't eat when we go out; they eat at home. And I have girlfriends who don't drink. So I'm like, I'm going to be a combination of the two of you. I'm not going to eat or drink. And it's only like it was only like 6 weeks at that time. And I feel like once I started feeling stronger, which was very interesting because I always thought when you're in a calorie deficit, you're going to feel weaker, right? And I'm not going to have any PRs. But interestingly, I had a lot of PRs the last six weeks. The headstand was not something like, oh, I want to do a headstand. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try this. And of course, my first thing is I can't do it. I can't do it. And then Jeff's like, yes, you can do it. And then I could do it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can do a handstand. This is so fantastic. Obviously, I'm also 30 pounds lighter, so that helped. But I feel like I started getting these goals while I'd made up my mind. It wasn't something like, I want to do a handstand or I want to do a pull-up. It's just almost where you think you cannot do something because I'd made up my mind that I couldn't do it, and then kind of switching the mentality that, oh wait, I can do it. What can I do next? Oh, I can do this. This is awesome. So I think that's how the handstand goal came about. You know, I saw a picture and I'm like, I would love to do this pose for the photo shoot. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do it. And then when I tried it, I could do it. So it was fantastic.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I also think it's empowering as well.
Yeah.
Right, like I think deadlines are great that way because it allows you to capture in that moment. I think photo shoots are really good, that's why. Because let's say if you still took those pictures, let's say you I don't know, Sita said, hey, we've got this deadline, which will be August, whatever the timeline is, and you just took pictures at home, I don't think it would have felt the same, personally. That's why we love shoots, because it's almost like a fitness wedding day.
Yeah.
Right? You get makeup done, it's your day, it's like a ton of pictures, family maybe around you, etc. And I think that's where it's really, really empowering as well. So we'll dive deep into shoot in a minute, but I want to go back to like the love for training. Like you speak about training very, very, very passionately. I've seen on Instagram, like we get tagged in the PRs, and it's really cool to see that because obviously, you know, a lot of women in general, to generalize as well, but we'll always be told like, training will make you bulky and, you know, don't do it and just be doing cardio. Talk us through your history of training. Did you always get into weight training?
No, so I first started lifting, like doing Olympic movements when we lived in San Diego, and we went to like, it wasn't a CrossFit gym, it was like more of a functional fitness gym. And I remember the first time I did a deadlift, I just felt so good. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is an amazing feeling. And then, you know, gradually the weight kept going up, and then my PR for deadlift is 240, which I'm sorry, that's a lot of weight. I never thought I could lift 240 pounds. So I feel like from there, it's just barbells are really important to me. I love the way they make me feel. It's 100% me, my strength. It has nothing to do with anyone else. So I just love the feeling of lifting. And also, you know, the definition that I've gotten through weight training or weightlifting has been amazing. Sorry, I don't. What is it? Weightlifting? Weight training?
Both are fine.
Yeah,
don't worry. Both are fine.
Yeah. So, and I think I work out with a lot of women who are surprised by how much weight they can lift. I feel like we always underestimate ourselves. We're like, oh, I can't lift that, and then when you do it, I've seen the expression that other women and other girlfriends have too, like, oh my gosh, I can do this. And it's the community. You're always cheering each other on. You're, you know, helping each other with your form, and you're learning together, no matter how strong you are or if you're just a beginner. And I love that sense of community and how empowered you feel when you're lifting weights.
Yeah, it's quite unique as well because, you know, normally you hear about, like, good example, when we got American clients, Orange Theory is like one of the most famous things available, and they're like Orange Theory, F45, burn, bar, whatever it is. It's, to me, one of the most interesting things, which is like how you've described weight training there.
Yeah.
What advice would you give, let's say, a client who's just joined right now and is fearful, is the opposite of you right now, is like, man, I'm really scared of weight training. I'm scared of going into the gym where there's just going to be just big guys over there.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. Like, what advice would you give those guys?
I'd say go with a girlfriend. Like, go with a girlfriend, have some fun with barbells. It is very intimidating, especially going to a traditional gym, quite honestly. It is, because you have like a lot of buff guys and you feel like you don't know how to use the machine. just go with a girlfriend who has a little more experience. Make it a lunch date where you go work out and go grab lunch afterwards, you know. And that way you make it an activity, and you'll get comfortable eventually. You know, it is very intimidating trying out something new, especially when you see a lot of other people around you who know exactly what they're doing. So get a buddy and go and try it out.
That's a really good way of looking at it. And deadlift PR, by the way, sounds awesome. My question to you actually is, did you first of all have a apprehension to lifting heavy, right? A lot of women do lift weights, but not as heavy as they can. Like
Not
you said,
240,
like you made a very good point that most women are not training, or most people even for that matter, men and women alike, are not training to their best ability. Most people have a lot more strength than they give themselves credit for. And you've done amazing to really tap into that intuitively for yourself. Did you have initially any fears for lifting heavy, would be my first question. And secondly, if there was any, like, how did you overcome that? What allowed you to, obviously apart from the love of it, how did you practically continue to progress and get stronger?
I don't think I had any fear, just because maybe the gym that I was working out in, there were always women who were extremely tiny and lifted an incredible amount of weight. So seeing that was always very inspiring, and I'm like, I want to do what she's doing, you know. I also think the stigma around how your body looks has changed, where people are embracing, you know, being muscular, like women are embracing being muscular and taking pride in what they're, like how they look and, you know, how much they can lift. So I was always around a community where I saw that a lot, and also just a lot of, like, really, I mean, I remember at one of the San Diego gyms, there was one of my girlfriends, extremely tiny, and the most, like, heaviest PRs I've ever seen. So that has always been, like, really inspiring. So I think, again, I feel like we're breaking the stereotypical notions that we have that if you lift a lot of weight, you're going to get really bulky. I think there's more education, there's Google, you know, it takes a lot to get really bulky. And I think obviously it has to do with diet too, you know. So with KMAK, it's like we're not really diet, like the food is not to bulk you, it's to make sure that you're on your weight loss, you know, process.
Yeah, absolutely. That's key. And I think coming from you, that a lot of women will listen to this and say, okay, well, you look amazing. You by far do not look bulky. You have immense amount of muscle mass and it shows. So yeah, really, really pleased to see that. And like I said, definitely a lot of women are going to be inspired by this, and wanting to see them lift more will be an aim from this podcast. But you mentioned diet there. So let's talk about that a bit more. Prior to starting up this journey, where do you feel you were lacking? And what have you learned through this journey in terms of nutrition, on how it improves perhaps your lifting game even?
So I think the biggest thing before I joined KMAK is I had reached a point where I would maybe lose a few pounds before a vacation, which I would try really, really hard. And, you know, eat healthy, be in a calorie deficit, watch what I'm eating, taking out dairy, taking out cheese, taking out fat, taking out carbs, not drinking, and just quite honestly being miserable before a trip, losing a few pounds, and then of course after vacation not having any kind of accountability, so you put it right back on. So I think December was probably my lowest I had ever reached, and just being frustrated, like, you know, I'm getting old, like I'm getting older, you have like 20 million things you can blame. So I think I was at that point where I'm like, I'm open to taking any help. And my sister, who she did this last year, and she saw a significant change. And quite honestly, she didn't do any of the check-ins. She was, you know, going through a transition. So she just did the initial diet that you guys gave her, and she saw a tremendous change. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try it. If it worked for my sister, then I'm gonna see if it's gonna work for me. And ironically, I actually did try what she was on, but I did not see the change that I saw when I got my own plan. So that tells me that somehow you guys have figured out what works for each person, because I got my meal plan, and I was able to follow that. So I think the diet part and the macros and how it works into you can eat everything you want to as long as you meet your numbers, that has been really kind of changing my mentality that there's nothing that's bad for you, because I eat cheese, my food is so flavorful. I mean, it's been amazing. And also, Jeff loves it now. I cook my own food. So he doesn't have to cook for me. And initially, he would cook for both of us. So I think that part has been really fantastic. With I can go out, adjust my macros, put in what I'm going to eat for breakfast and lunch, and then accordingly order for dinners. Yeah. And I like adding. Macros is like calculation. It's like a puzzle. I love doing it. So I know a lot of people don't like tracking, but I love it. I'm like, this is a puzzle. Like, okay, I can eat so much for dinner. Well, how am I going to fill it in with lunch and breakfast? So
I love how you've gamified it.
Yeah.
Because again, it's the way that people frame it. Like one person can be like, I'm never going to track, and then you're like, I'm going to gamify it. I'm going to make this a puzzle. How can you make it fun? For let's say someone out there is potentially also in the same boat who doesn't want to track. Is it, like you mentioned, just including the foods that you'd want? Because that's one of our aims, to be honest, which is like one of the reasons why we don't dictate forever is because you'll never learn, right? Like, let's say you leave tomorrow, I think you'll be fine. Realistically, I think you'd be fine just because you understand numbers now to a high level. You can play around with your numbers. You can understand, where you can get your carbs from, etc., right? So I think you'll be fine. But how can someone else who maybe also listening to this right now gamify it to make it fun? Is it, like I said, just including the foods they want?
I think about it as a puzzle, like I mentioned earlier, and I like FitnessPal a lot, so it's very easy to enter things in there. You can track things, and also I think it's also educational, because then eventually if I'm on vacation, and I don't track when I'm on vacation at all, but I kind of have an idea of how much, a handful of I'll take chicken for an example, like how much it is, or what 4 ounces of chicken is, or sashimi, like how much 4 ounces of that is. So you just kind of figure it out, and then it becomes more insightful instead of having to put it into FitnessPal. And the same thing, like I love snacking, especially on almonds, and then the next thing you know, I've had like 100 almonds. So now it's easy, if you're snacking all day on almonds and then you don't realize how much fat you're getting. So now it's like, okay, I know like how much I should be eating. So it's easy even on vacation to do that. I've been that person where I've told Sita, I'm never doing this. I'm never doing that because this is, quite honestly, I think it's stupid. I'm not going to be that person who takes protein powder on vacation. And guess what? I got protein powder on this trip. And both Jeff and I had protein powder this morning with, just some water. So I just feel like your mentality changes where you think you're never going to do something, and then you're like, let me just give it a try. Let me see how it goes. And it works out great. So I promised myself I wasn't going to go with a closed mind into this, but I think sometimes you just automatically bring in your opinions and notions, and I've seen that changing. So I would tell people, just be open, just give it a try. If you absolutely hate it, guess what? No one's forcing you. You don't have to do it. Like, you can tell me do this. I'll be like, no. Like, what are you going to do? There's nothing you can do, There's nothing Sita can do. All she can tell me is like, hey, I'm going to recommend you that you give this a try. And I've told her that, like, I know 2 weeks ago I had a wedding and I sent her a message and I was like, hey, I'm going to have fun today. I'm not going to worry about macros. I'm not going to worry about how many drinks I'm going to have. And her response back to me was like, then be ready to put on some weight tomorrow. I was like, fine. If that's what it's going to be, put on some weight tomorrow, that's okay. I thank you for being clear, but I'm having fun at this wedding. It's more important to me than what's going to happen the next day.
Yeah, I think balance and the frameworks around balance is also like really, really important. Like knowing, I always tell to people, like if you're going to, like I say, your best friend's birthday party, we get it. like you're gonna have fun. But if you're going to,
Yeah.
I don't know, like someone's a friend of a friend's baby shower, it's like you need to go crazy with that one.
No.
Maybe
Probably
not,
not.
right?
Yeah.
So I think it's finding out that. I mean, I remember our first ever call, and you're like, I'm going to India very soon, and you're like, I don't know if I want to track this, do this, do this. Like, do you remember that part?
Yeah, no, I do.
And I remember like to see you now, and you're like, actually, I'm doing this. It's actually quite cool to see the flip side to it. I think I remember even Jeff saying, actually, why don't you try it out, and it could be good.
Yeah.
So I think that was quite cool as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on.
And I don't track on vacation. Like I do have fun, but I also think everyone's different, and I know where I love food, but I usually have a few bites and I get full. So I am very cognizant about trying not to overeat, but I do try a lot of different foods. So sometimes it looks like I'm like overeating, but I'm only trying everything out. But I won't sacrifice the experience of traveling. And I'd rather just come back home and get back to it, which this is what I feel like KMAK has held me accountable for that, which has been amazing, because usually I either, like when you're on vacation, you're walking a lot, so you're burning a few more calories, and then when I come back, I've gotten back to like my pre-vacation weight very soon. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
No. Just about like vacations and socials as well at the same time, on how you manage that. Obviously, you mentioned that you don't track on vacations, and that's, again, we pride ourselves in making sure that that's part of your routine. Like, you're not necessarily taking a break, but you're much more mindful. Mm-hmm. Right? There's a difference between taking a break completely, which some people, they come back and they say, well, I'm going away, I'm not going to track anything at all, but then at the same time, they're not intuitive. Whereas you've mentioned something very important about you'll try everything, but it's within a certain measurement, it's in a certain portion control. You're walking a lot. You're doing all the things that will allow you to remain more active without, and enjoy everything without going massively over your weight. And I mean, we've seen cases where people have got away for a couple of days and they're back to their very first starting point just in a few days' time. And imagine if people more so thought about it in the way that you have, is that, look, I'm gonna go, you've already decided that ownership is very important. You've mentioned that a couple of times in the way that you said about sort of, vacations, socials, etc. Is that you take ownership of the fact that, Mac, I'm gonna enjoy myself, I already know the repercussions. I'm gonna be maybe a couple of pounds heavier, that's okay. Ownership is important because then you don't come back with a guilty mindset.
Yeah.
When you come back with a guilty mindset, you've got to reframe your mindset all over again to get started. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you know, right, I'm going to come back a couple of pounds heavier, cool, no big deal, I'll just get back on track. And you've said it yourself that you get back to your pre-vacation weight, which is awesome. So I love your mindset. I love the way you think about it as well. But I want to know if at all there have been any significant challenges that you were like, oh, well, I really don't know how to go about this, or something that you thought was challenging, but through this process has become way more easier for you to manage.
I mean, the last 6 weeks were hard. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to lie about it. It took a lot of discipline. It took a lot of dedication. I understand it was my time to make sure I could shred it as much as I can, and I was going to give it my all. It was weird for me. There were days when I felt really full, and then there were certain days where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my mind. I don't know if I can do this. Mm-hmm. And I'm very lucky that I have a very supportive husband who was like, no, you can do this. Like, it's only, 5 more days or, 10 more days. There's an end to this. So I think having a strong support system is very important. Especially if you have a significant other. To me, that it's very important that your significant other is supportive. And even if, like, Jeff didn't do it, so he doesn't 100% get what I was doing, even though he saw everything that I was doing, but he's not doing it. So I also was aware of that part, that he might not understand it, but at the same time he was very supportive. So that helped a lot. And then the other thing for me that was very challenging were the steps. Like, I am not gonna lie, it was so hard in the beginning to get to 10,000 steps. Also, we had one of the worst winters in Denver, and I didn't have a walking pad, which I should have gotten one. Kind of what I should have gotten a walking pad when I started, but you don't realize it. And I'm glad I got one, even if it was 6 months after. But I would literally bundle up and walk in like negative degrees to get to 10,000 steps. But that's just, I feel like I wanted to make sure I was following the program and giving it my all because, hey, I'm paying money for this, so I want to see what it's going to do and then decide if it's going to work or not. So the steps were hard. They were very hard.
Zita told me that you went from 10K to 20K with the walking pad. Steps, obviously, it's what I realized with a lot of people is like initially when they first start, they're like, oh my God, 10K or whatever the number we give. It's almost like a chore, and then eventually becomes like this enjoyment factor, which is it's my own me time and so on. How did you find like the steps? Obviously, with the walking pad, did you find it empowering? Was it like enduring? Were you killing two birds with one stone, listening to a podcast or listening to a book or whatever?
So my job is pretty stressful, and I'm usually on the phone for like 6 to 7 hours a day, and it starts at around 6:30 in the morning and goes on pretty much all day. So now I've started walking when I'm on my calls, and I have my headphones on. I also got something from Amazon that adjusts my laptop, to my level. And I feel like I'm so much more focused while I'm walking. And also I'm not multitasking because before I would sit either on the desk or I have a chase in my office. And I'm on the calls, but I'm also multitasking with other emails and stuff. But now that I'm walking, I can't respond to other emails. So I'm very focused on the calls. So I think my quality of work has gotten a lot better because I'm giving my undivided attention to the calls, and then at the same time I'm also walking. So
that's a very interesting observation. Actually, I think that's the first time we've heard that here.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, I love it. And now it's like I'm gonna be honest. I'm not that person who's ever going to post 10K before 10K or I just think I've just like it's so to me it's just not my thing, but it's so easy to get to 15,000 steps just before noon because I'm on the phone and I'm walking, instead of sitting, and I also feel more attentive. But it's a lot easier.
That's incredible, actually. 15K by must
By
start
noon,
hashtagging that
exactly.
from now
Yeah,
on,
exactly.
right? And posting on Instagram because
Start a new trend.
basically, yeah.
No, I don't. I do not want to start that trend. I think that it's great that it motivates a lot of people, but for me it actually worked to the opposite, where I'm just like, what are these people doing? Like, how are they walking these steps? I'm dying here, and I can barely get to 10,000 steps until the end of the day and have to like walk around my house pacing back and forth. So the first 6 months I was not a big fan of the 10K, but I understand, like moving around and low impact activity helps with just I'm blanking on the word, but I think you understand what I mean.
Yeah. I want to go back into like the early days, but let's go into like any hesitations into online coaching, because obviously it's new. Like I say, it's new, but you're with the community already. Training is a huge part, and I know we spoke about training as well initially, but training is a huge part for you. You've already got that. We're remote, so you may not have that initially in the very beginning, and also time difference. We're in England, we're in London. Did you find like, oh my God, I'm actually hesitant to do this? And yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I was very hesitant. Also, with my job, I work with a lot of different time zones. So quite honestly, personally, I didn't want to add in another thing where I'd have to deal with another time zone. So I was very hesitant. I didn't know how it was going to work. I'm like, I don't want to have to arrange another Zoom call because I really am on the phone. Like most of my team is in Europe. Half of them are in the UK, and then we have teams that are in APAC. So just a lot of different time zones, a lot of different calls. And I'm like, I don't want this nutrition thing, quite honestly, to be another thing I have to put on my calendar and figure out what time is going to work. But this is what I've told a lot of my friends who've asked me about KMAK, that it just somehow works out. Like, I don't know how it just, like, I was stressed about it in the beginning, but then when I saw how easy True Coach works with the messages, and it's almost like, for me personally, just having I had 2 video calls with Sita worked out really well because I didn't need a lot of babying, and I needed directness, and which is what I got from Sita. And even her messages, I don't need a saga, I just need 2 lines. Tell me what to do. That's all I need. And it worked out really well. So I think with the messaging, the videos, the weekly check-ins, I do think they're extremely important. So I still put it in, even if Sita's not looking at it. I put in, my weight and my thoughts and my challenges and all that stuff, just for me, because it's become a habit, but also then I'm keeping myself accountable. So that the videos that Sita sent were very helpful too.
Yeah, I think check-ins are journaling.
Yeah.
In fact, we said it quite often, like the ability to journal, but then also get response back to your journal. It's very, very different, because you then get different perspective from us guys on what to improve on, how to make certain things better.
Yeah.
Like, and we always say, I've never had a transformation in my career without consistent check-ins.
Yeah.
So if someone was only checking in, I don't know, like once or twice in their journey, and they sign up for that initial 4 month, they'd really struggle. They actually probably hate us, because they're like, oh, I don't know what I've got from this, etc. But the check-in is where the values are right now. What did the check-ins mean for you? I know you said accountability was one. Obviously, how was your relationship with Sita developed? Because obviously, like I said, it's just through videos as well.
I think it was gradual, I think Sita also understands how I work. So I was getting from her what I needed, but I think sometimes things can be lost in, text messages or, true app messages, and the video check-ins, they kind of communicate exactly what you need to do and just what your progress is, where you're going, if you've had a fallback that week, what the reasons could be. So it kind of goes more into the details, which I appreciated a lot. So I think it's not. And I also think it's a personal personality, I guess, where I was not looking for a best friend. So Sita and I, didn't eventually, we weren't like, oh my gosh, you're my BFF, but our relationship gradually opened up, where I felt comfortable with sharing everything with her, and I also wasn't scared to tell her that, hey, I don't think this is going to work out for me, so how can we adjust it? I think having that kind of open communication is really important, because again, if you tell me to do something and I'm not going to do it, and then I don't communicate it to you, you're gonna be like, why is she not losing weight? Or why am I not seeing the progress that, we should be seeing? So then you're gonna try to adjust it a different way, and I'm still not doing it. So it's like, I knew I had to be very honest with her. And one of the things I was honest with her was the steps. I know she tried to increase it. I'm like, nope, not gonna happen. Just not going to happen. So I really enjoyed having that open relationship with her.
Yeah.
That's really important, having that open relationship, being transparent at every point of the way. And the honesty, right? You're right. Where as much as we love to build a relationship, and having someone as a friend on the other side is great. And I'm sure that over time you've been able to create that sort of friendly friendship sort of with Sita, which is amazing to see. But we obviously as coaches need to make sure that we're unbiased in our perspective. So if we end up in that BFF, as you mentioned, situation, which you're honest about, is like you were not looking for that. You needed brutally someone to tell you this is what you need to do, and at the same time you telling them very clearly, well, I'm not going to do this. Give me something else, or I'm not going to do this. And we like that. I think that's awesome. More people need to be more transparent, because the more transparency we have, the better we're equipped to help you get where you need to be.
Yeah.
So I like that.
I mean, without transparency, you're probably not going to get a result.
Yeah.
To put it, like if you said, the steps is a great situation actually, because if let's say that went like, Sita doesn't know anything, and she's like, okay, now you're going to do 12K. You're like, no, but you don't say anything about it, and then you're like, what's going on? It would just get missed.
Yeah.
And I think that to me has been really, really cool. And appreciate telling the audience as well, the ability to communicate at a high level will allow you to get better results. So I think that's quite cool. But what was your biggest aha moment? I think I may know it, because from a training perspective, there's been quite a lot of ones, but from clothes to compliments in the street, friends telling you. Would love to hear what was the biggest aha then? Well,
I think personally it was when we did our revows and I got to my first initial goal weight, which is interesting because my goal weight keeps changing. And
it always does, and
that's how it's like, it's not a fixed thing. This whole process is very tangible, where goals should be changing as you reach them, you know, or if you're not reaching them, then they should be changing, you know, either way they should be changing so that you can get to a better place. I think for me it was definitely when we did the April revows, and I did not think I was going to get to that weight, which is so ironic to me compared to where I am right now, which this was not even a possibility, you know? So it was a revows where I felt fantastic, and I was wearing this little white trashy Vegas wedding dress, and I felt really good in it and had so much fun. So I think it would be that moment where I was able to get to my first initial goal, which I wasn't able to get to last year when I tried really, really hard for a Croatia trip that we had. So I tried so hard, and I lost a few pounds. I think I lost about 10 pounds, which took me 6 months. And now in 6 months, I've lost 30 pounds. So that's just insane. But the Vegas trip would be it for sure.
Did you think you'd lose 30 pounds? Like
no.
The first call where you're like, oh my God, I think I may lose 30 pounds.
No, that was, I wasn't that person. Of course the photo shoots are amazing. Don't get me wrong. You feel fantastic, but the photo shoot was never my goal. My goal was always, I want to lose weight and I want it to be sustainable. I want to enjoy life. I want to be able to eat, drink, have a good time with my friends, and not get back into the lifestyle that I had, where one weekend goes into 5 weekends, and next thing I know, I've put on 30 pounds. So my goal has always been having a sustainable life, like a lifestyle, and enjoying life.
Yeah, I think obviously, I saw a lot of your stories, and I was like, it's quite cool to see it, because we don't really panic as coaches. I personally don't, because I'm like, it's cool to see you. Like, one of the things I used to see was you'd go away weekends, and the next day it would be like a steps thing, or it'd be like your bicep pose in the mirror, right? So it was consistently you just get back into it. Yeah. And I think that's what we spoke about, with balance, sustainability, because ultimately, that is one of the key things. But 3 tips for people out there regarding motivation, because a lot of people within the journey, you're going to go through it ups and downs. But how did you, if you had the low day where you thought, F it, I'm not going to do this or whatever, how did you pick yourself back up?
I think I would vent about it to Jeff, quite honestly. I'd be like, this fucking sucks. I hate it. And maybe I'd have a few more pieces of chocolate that night, and the next day I'd wake up. I'm like, okay, it's a new day. I can do this, and then it's just reset. Don't get stuck in the Debbie Downer mentality, and don't let that one day go into 5 days. And also give yourself some grace. It's okay, if you have a couple of fall downs, but just get back up and try to get back into it. Talk about it with your coach, definitely. But it's just, I think for me, it's that one day getting into the week and then just feeling low, because then it gets really hard to get back into your routine. I'm a big routine person, so I go to the gym at the same time. Sometimes I go to the gym the same days of the week, so that helps, making sure you just get back into your routine. To me now, doing 10,000 steps is part of my routine when I'm at home, so it's getting back into that routine, so that helps too.
Yeah, it's just creating your non-negotiables.
Yeah. Building
your non-negotiables versus, I don't know, being super emotional about the day and then getting back into the next day, right?
Yeah. And then also, I love working out. I know a lot of people don't like working out, which I think is so weird. And maybe because I work from home, so it's also my social, and that was the other thing. I had a hard time when Sita's you can only work out 4 days a week. I'm like, no, I work out 5 days a week, so what are we gonna do? And then I'm like, okay, my 5th day, I'll just go and move my body, not really work out. But it's more for me, it's more of the social aspect, because I work from home. I'm very, isolated. I'm on the phone. My team is all remote, so I don't get that human interaction unless I go to the gym. So the gym is a very important part of my life. And also, I feel really rejuvenated after I work out, and I'm not cranky, so even if it's moving around. So I'd say if you hate working out, try to join something or have a community or a buddy who makes it more fun, and then it kind of changes your mentality around working out too.
Yeah, I think accountability is huge.
Yeah.
Even like whether it's through like an online platform, coach or whatever. I think also like having, like I personally, so Saj is, you know, someone who I've trained with for 10 years now. And we've consistently trained together. Like it feels weird when I train by myself because I'm like, what's going on here? Like we always need that. Everyone needs accountability in my opinion, as well. You mentioned something to me the other day regarding like PRs, like in the lead up to your photo shoot. Do you want to describe that? Because obviously a lot of people have that mentality. You mentioned actually at the start, like I'm in a deficit, I'm scared, I don't want to lose my strength, which is actually quite cool to hear from a female and a woman, right? Because a lot of women generally are like, I'm happy to be in a deficit.
Yeah.
They'll never, that's a very unique thing. Men say that quite often to us. Man, I'm really scared to go lower than this, or if I do, I'm going to lose muscle.
Strength, lose muscle, yeah.
Exactly. So talk us through like that last, 6 weeks, 4 weeks, last 2 weeks with your strength gains. And I've seen some things on Instagram as well.
And so interesting that you mentioned that, because my whole thing was I didn't want to be in a deficit and it affecting my strength at the gym and feeling weak and not being able to lift as much as I do. But no, it was crazy. I was in a deficit and I was still hitting a lot of PRs. I mean, even my pull-ups, I was not even able to do something close to a kipping pull-up, but now I can do that. I can raise myself up on the bar with a jumping pull-up. I'm going to learn how to do a pull-up in the next 2 weeks. I'm going to a pull-up clinic. Like, I just never thought I was going to be that person. But definitely, for me, I felt more focused and also stronger at the gym. Definitely hit more PRs with front squat, deadlifts, and a bench press. So it's all barbell movements, and I was surprised. I also don't eat before I go to the gym because I think like I just get sick if I eat before I work out. So it still didn't affect my strength.
Yeah, that's actually incredible because this the advantage of actually being a woman sometimes.
Yeah.
Is women don't lose as much strength during a deficit.
Yeah.
Whereas men, there is that risk where like first thing when we're in a deficit is our pressing goes, right? So for you, like the bench press probably got stronger over time.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really, really cool element towards that as well. But lastly, what would you say to someone that is maybe on the fence, wants to get in the best shape of their lives, like want to go through the same process as you, like, what would you say?
I'd just say give it a try. Like I've had all those apprehensions, and the progress that I've seen in the last 7 months has been absolutely incredible. And quite honestly, you have nothing to lose. It's like, yes, are you going to be spending money? But then you're also on nutrition, fitness coaching. At the same time, you're not going out, so you're kind of saving money. So it kind of ends up being a balance. Like we all have gone out for expensive dinners where you just spend about $300 or $400 on one meal, and then you walk out and you feel gross the next day. So just like give it a try. You have nothing to lose, and you might be shocked by the results you see.
Yeah, and that's our aim. Is like we want to help as many people as we can, but do it in a way which they can have fun with it. Like what you've kind of described today is like you've actually had a lot of fun. Like I said, the photo shoot was never the aim. 30 pounds was like, I don't know if I can do that. And you managed to, you managed to make it happen. And I think it's incredible to see that as well. But where can people find you? I know you're quite active on Instagram as well, right?
Yes.
What's the
It's Welty.
We'll put it down below here, guys. But check it out, and you'll see her PRs. And you probably should upload more actually on your actual post. I think you're a pioneer for women with
empowerment and strength training.
Exactly. Like I genuinely do
sure.
believe that. Like you should take it quite seriously, and you should actually, especially Indian women, in my opinion, right?
100%.
Asian women in general. Like I think it's really, really, really cool to see. So credit to you, and it's been an amazing chat as well. So guys, apart from that, till next time, peace.